All right, hello everybody. I am going to kind of go through some of the stuff that is going to be due. So I'm going to try and pack in like an online class since we have had about, I think, 2 snow days that have affected us now. So I will be posting this to Classroom. This kind of just gives a big overview, but I do want to review it before I actually post anything. So um, this is just an attempt to stay on track with our material. The first thing that's going to be posted is this mindfulness video. It's not mandatory, it is optional. If you're interested in it, then this is for you. It's a body scan, and you lay down and you just listen to the voice, and it's pretty soothing. So if you're interested, feel free. The second thing is to look over this video. So if you looked over this video, you're listening to it, you're adding any additional notes, then you did it. So this is just kind of if you want to add anything, or if you don't, that's fine. It's just to kind of get you guys used to this vocabulary before we actually dive into like what does it mean. So today I'll be showing you actual parts of the heart within this video. So then the third thing is going to be an ed puzzle. So it's the video where you answer questions. This will come up as an assignment on Classroom. So it'll be under classwork and it'll be under Unit 4. So it'll also show right here. It's going to be due on the Sunday before we get back from break. So the 23rd, and it's at midnight. So I'm going to set it for midnight on the 23rd. That means anything after the clock strikes 12 on midnight, that means you cannot access this video anymore. So make sure you get that in. You guys have a week to do it. So the fourth thing is going to be to complete that heart worksheet. So I did talk about if there was a snow day, you guys would be labeling the numbers as well as the direction of blood flow. So feel free if you guys want to use, it's typically used with arrows. You guys will see in your textbook that it's typically used with red and blue. So red meaning oxygenized blood, and then blue meaning, deoxygenated blood. We don't have blue blood, but that's just how it's distinguished between the two. It's just easier to see. So if you guys want to color red and blue arrows or red and blue sections of the heart, feel free. We will be going over this worksheet on Monday, and then we'll be going into a relay race about how blood flows through the heart. So the last thing I'm going to post is also optional. I haven't typed it in yet, but it's going to be a video I found on, I don't remember if it's which one it is. It's this one. So it's the anatomy of a heart attack. It's about 9 minutes and 30 seconds. He just kind of talks about, it's the guy from TikTok, the Institute of Human Anatomy. He talks about just different things, like what happens in a heart attack, what does it look like, why does a heart attack happen. It's pretty interesting. It's optional. It's just for you guys who are really interested after we start talking about EKGs, ECGs. So yeah, I'll type that in, and then I will post this after this video is done. Everything will be attached. Most of the stuff's going to be due on Sunday, and then of course that heart worksheet's going to be due on Monday when you walk in. All right, so let's get to it. So circulatory system notes. So the pulmonary and systemic circuits is what we're going to start with. I'm just going to go down the list of the vocab and talk about what they mean. So we have pulmonary circuits and we have systemic circuits. The pulmonary circuits are going to send deoxygenated blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide. So it's that gas exchange that's happening in the lungs. So it's going to pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide. It's the blue that's located right here. So this is going to be your pulmonary circulation. And then our systemic circuit is going to send oxygen-rich blood and nutrients to the body cells and remove waste. So it's going to be the red. So it's going to be the systemic circulation. So it's that gas exchange with oxygenated blood. So then we go to the layers of the heart. So we have the pericardium, epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium. So the pericardium is part of the heart. It's like a sac that encloses the heart. it's going to be this guy right here. It's going to enclose the heart, act like a double layer of protection for the heart because of the amount of friction the heart produces. Then we have the epicardium. This is kind of like the outer layer of the actual heart. It's going to protect the heart from friction. So it's, again, this double layer of protection. This is going to be your epicardium and then your pericardium. These protect the heart. Then we have the myocardium, which is in the middle. Myo meaning muscle, cardiac muscle. This is going to be your thick middle layer made of cardiac tissue. So it's this right here. Your endocardium is going to be the inner layer of the heart, and it's composed of epithelium and connective tissues. So it's this inner layer of tissues right here. And I did find a pericardium video on their website. Oh, I think it's, all right.
Okay, so here's your cool human fact of the day. Your heart is covered in a connective tissue layer called the pericardium. Now, I'm pulling this to the side, and believe it or not, I can even pull this heart out, and we can see this empty pericardial sac. Now, this would normally be filled with fluid to help reduce all the friction the heart generates as it beats.
All right, so pretty cool. The heart has so many systems in check to make sure everything is working okay. This being one of them, making sure the friction doesn't disrupt anything. So it's the layers of the heart. So for the parts of the heart, I'm just going to go down the list of the vocab and talk about each one. And then I have a couple of TikTok videos as well to show you guys. So the first one's going to be your atria, and these are just the upper sections of the heart, upper chambers of the heart. I'm sorry. Your atria are going to be the upper sections. So the bottom sections are going to be your ventricles. So I think A, V in the alphabet. A is before V. So your ventricles are the lower chambers. The next is going to be the septum. So it's going to be this middle layer of tissue. And this is going to be just a solid wall of tissue. It's going to separate the left and right sides of the heart. So we have that middle layer. Then we have the tricuspid valve, tri meaning 3. That's going to be this guy right over here. So it's the valve right that separates the right atrium and the right ventricle. So tri meaning there's 3. Then we have papillary muscles. So these are going to be they project inward from the walls of the ventricles. They kind of hold the tendon pieces. So these papillary muscles. Then we have the pulmonary arteries. These are going to lead to the lungs. This is where that deoxygenated blood is going to go to the lungs to have that gas exchange to become oxygenated blood. Then we have the pulmonary valve. So the pulmonary valve is this guy right here. The pulmonary valve is going to allow blood to leave the right ventricle. So the right ventricle right here. So you can see that the heart is divided into that red and blue section. We're right now in the blue section. So this is deoxygenated blood. So that pulmonary valve is going to allow that blood to leave the right ventricle. Then we have what's called the mitral valve. That's this guy right here. You'll also hear bicuspid. So we have tricuspid, tri meaning 3, bicuspid, bi meaning 2. So we have the mitral or bicuspid valve. This is going to allow blood flow it's going to control blood flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. So the left atrium to the left ventricle. This is going to be what controls the blood flow here. And then we have the aorta, which is this huge artery. It's the biggest artery in your body. It's going to really just help deliver that oxygenated blood through the heart. So then we have the aortic valve. So that is going to be it allows blood flow to leave from the left ventricle. So, and I am not too sure if it is on here, aortic valve. So we have our left ventricle. It might not be on here. But anyway, it's going to allow the blood to leave from this ventricle. It's actually going to be right in here. So the blood would flow right in here. Sorry about that, guys. So aortic valve allows the blood to leave that left ventricle. So I do have a couple of TikToks that I did find. The first one is going to be about, I think this one's the valve one. So let's take a look.
The heart is probably my favorite organ, and there's so many different reasons as to why that's true. But something I want to show you that never ceases to amaze me is just how cool it looks on the inside. Now, if you look and see this white flat thing up top, that's called the mitral valve, and it separates the left atrium from the left
So it's the
ventricle.
bicuspid valve.
What's attached to it are these things called the chordae tendineae. Those are your literal heartstrings. The heart is just the workhorse of the body. This thing beats, on average, 2.5 to 3 billion times over your lifetime. Today I want to talk.
All right, so we talked about the mitral valve there. That's the bicuspid valve. Let's see what other one I have. I tried to pull them out so I'd remember. This is going to be one about the aorta. So he's going to show you how big it is, and you can actually already see how big it is.
What you're looking at here is a real human heart. But what I want to focus on is this thing. This is part of the aorta. It's called the ascending aorta. This is the largest blood vessel in the body, and it tends to be about the size of a garden hose. It's absolutely enormous. Today I want to show.
All right, so that aorta is huge, like you said, size of a garden hose. It is a very large artery. I have another one. I think this one is going to be another aorta one. I am not too sure.
The largest blood vessel in the body, the aorta. But in order to see it, I have to reflect back this connective tissue layer called the pericardium, and we can see the aorta. Now this is really cool. Watch what happens. I can push it, and it'll bounce back every single time. The reason why is because it's loaded with elastic fibers that allow it to expand as the heart beats. But this thing is about the size of a garden hose. I want to show you something.
So it is important that the aorta is full of these elastic fibers because, I mean, we think about how much blood is pumped through our body. It's got to withhold that, like keep that up all day, so it has to be elastic. The last video I want to show you guys is of a pacemaker. So some of you guys probably have heard of pacemaker. My grandfather had one. So it just kind of, there's this thing that we have that we'll talk about later, and it's kind of our natural pacemaker. And sometimes that just stops working. Luckily, we have technology where we can implement a pacemaker, and it'll just basically dictate how the heart is pumping blood.
Special circumstances. Let's talk about a pacemaker. You see this wire here? This is called a lead. This would be attached to a pulse generator that would be placed on the outside of your pecs, and it sends an electrical signal that would go down this lead into that right atrium, and we can even see where it ends down here at the base of the heart. Now, the reason you'd need a pacemaker like this is if the heart was unable to contract on its own. The heart normally will beat on its own without any input from the brain, but if the natural conductive pathway breaks down, that's when you need a pacemaker.
So like I said, we do have a natural, we already have that pacemaker in us, but sometimes it just doesn't, it stops working, which is okay because now we have pacemakers. So again, this is just going to help the heart contract, and we'll talk more about that pacemaker later. All right, so back to the parts of the heart. Let's go to this slide. So this is like kind of continued on the outside of the heart. So we kind of talked about the inside already. So this is kind of like the outside of the heart. We do have what we call coronary arteries. These guys, well, this is kind of like the whole idea of the coronary arteries is on the outside of the heart. Arteries are going to carry that oxygenated blood. So arteries are usually in red, veins are usually in blue. So these coronary arteries are going to be the first two branches, or on the first two branches of the aorta, and they're going to supply blood to the tissues of the heart. So the heart actually has its own blood supply that it needs, right? The heart needs to get oxygen just like the rest of our organs. So that's what these guys are going to help do. We then have cardiac veins. So again, these veins, typically in blue, once the heart uses the oxygen it needs, it's going to have to obviously get rid of those, or rid of that deoxygenated blood. So these are going to run parallel to the coronary arteries, so right beside them, right? And these guys are just going to empty into the coronary sinus and deliver that deoxygenated blood. So then we do have the coronary sinus, which is right in here. So that's where all of this deoxygenated blood is going to get emptied into within the heart. And then I think I have another TikTok for you guys. So let's see. Watch this guy. I think this is what I want.
So what you're looking at here is a real human heart, but what I want to focus on are these squiggly lines. You see, these things are part of a network called the coronary arteries. Their job is to deliver nutrient, oxygen-rich blood to the heart muscle itself. You see, the heart needs blood and nutrients in order to work, but if these things get clogged, typically to dietary issues, we call that a heart attack. You see, a heart attack is when the heart muscle doesn't get blood and oxygen to supply it to make it work. Let's talk.
All right, so again, that heart does need its own blood supply to help it work. So kind of cool, and you guys will see that once you guys dissect the heart, you'll see what all that kind of looks like. So on to the next slide. So now we're kind of going to talk about contraction. What is it? What are the fancy terms that we use in the medical world? Some of you guys probably are familiar with this. But we have systole and diastole. So when you're taking blood pressure, you're measuring the contraction and the relaxation of the heart. So systole is just that contraction. Diastole is going to be that relaxation. So I kind of have the picture opposite here, but the heart's going to contract and then it's going to relax. We have systole, diastole. So this whole idea of a heartbeat is considered the cardiac cycle. So this is just the series of events, what happens in the heartbeat. So you're going to have all of these events that happen. You're going to have your atrium are going to contract, and then your ventricles are going to contract. While the ventricles are kind of contracting, your atrium are relaxing. So it's kind of this intense thing that's happening. It's like I guess if you guys have ever like listened to a blood or someone's blood pressure, you kind of almost hear like it's like boom, 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 boom. So it's kind of that double. That's why you hear that double beat, I guess. And then it's also followed by a brief relaxation of both chambers. So both chambers do eventually relax. And then this word I always have such a hard time pronouncing, so bear with me. It's functional syncytium. This is just the mass of merging cells that function as a unit. It's located in the atrial walls and the ventricular walls. So these are just the cells that are going to act together. They're within the walls of the atrium and ventricles. So the cardiac conduction system is going to be fibers that conduct impulses to the heart. So these are going to coordinate the cardiac cycle. So like I said, the heart has like systems that check and recheck what's going on. These fibers are just going to be part of that check. So they conduct the impulses to the heart. They're kind of going to be the original coordinators of that cardiac cycle. Moving on, we do have the sinoatrial node, or the SA node, and we have the atrioventricular node, or the AV node. It's easier to say SA and AV, so most time you'll hear them abbreviated, but sinoatrial and atrioventricular. So starting with the SA node, this is just a specialized cardiac muscle tissue that's located in the right atrium. It's located right here. It's the first basketball hoop guy, or basketball player guy. It's going to reach its threshold on its own without stimulation from nerve cells. So this is what our original, or our like biological pacemaker is the SA node. This is going to initiate the contraction. So it reaches a threshold. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys remember when we talked about the nervous system, but I kind of said that even though there are nerves that lead to the heart does have its own kind of neurological pathway, I guess. So if you were to take a swab of, I guess, or cut a piece of tissue from someone's heart that recently passed, their heart cells actually I think it's for a few days on the slide. So it's pretty interesting. I've seen it. My old neuro teacher had a video of it. It was pretty cool. So this SA node, again, is going to reach threshold on its own. It's our natural pacemaker. It's going to stimulate contraction. So our heart contracts about 80 times per minute. So it's going to stimulate that contraction. So it's our SA node. We then have our atrioventricular node, or our AV node. So this is just a specialized group of cells that are located in the inferior septum. So remember, our septum is that thing that kind of separates our heart into left and right sides. It's going to receive an impulse from the SA nodes. That's why he's shooting his basketball to the AV node. So SA node is going to, shoot that basketball over to the AV node. It's sending that impulse and stimulates contraction of the ventricles. So remember, the atria are going to contract and the ventricles contract. So that's why you hear thump, thud, 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 right? So they're just playing basketball. All right, so within the AV node, we do have the AV bundle. It's called the bundle of His. So, and then we do have the Purkinje fibers. So the AV bundle, or the bundle of His, is going to be large fibers that are located on the upper interventricular septum. So within that septum, it's going to be on the upper side. So the parasympathetic and the sympathetic parts of the nervous system are going to innervate the heart, and they're controlled by the medulla oblongata. So the medulla actually has a pretty big part in, if anybody remembers what the medulla does, it regulates the things we don't think about, right? So it's going to be our heartbeat, right? We don't want to think about how, I don't want to think about I have to contract my heart 80 times per minute, right? So the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems are going to help with that. So when the acetylcholine is secreted, it's going to regulate the rate of the SA node and the AV node activity. So acetylcholine here is going to be secreted and regulate that rate. And it's considered like the main highway. And I have a picture on the next slide that'll show you guys why it's called the main highway. And then we have the Purkinje fibers. So these are going to spread from the septum into the papillary fibers, and then into the ventricular walls of the apex. So the apex of the heart is the top of the heart. So, I guess if you're looking at the heart, it's going to be this top piece right here. And I'll show you that on the next picture. Sorry, bear with me, guys. And then it's going to conduct contraction impulses into the ventricles. So I have this picture right here. We have our apex. This is called the base of the heart. So we do have, I'm trying to look for, so we have the bundle of His going to be right here. So this is what that main highway I was talking about. And then it kind of branches off to the Purkinje fibers, right? So it's kind of got that main highway, and then we branch off to the Purkinje fibers, which are going to stimulate that contraction of the ventricles. So then the last thing we're going to talk about is EKGs, ECGs. So these are just electrocardiograms. They mean the same thing. The EKG is, I don't even know how to say it. It's a German word. It means the same thing. Same test, same everything. A lot of people, if you ever work in a hospital, you'll hear EKG over the intercom because ECG actually sounds like EEG, which is an electroencephalogram. So if you're paging for an EKG, you don't want your neuro doctors to come in and test for something inappropriate because you don't have a lot of time with the heart. So a lot of times they'll just say or yell EKG over the intercom. So these EKGs, it's just a recording of the electrical changes that occur in the myocardium during cardiac cycles. So I don't know if you guys have ever watched Grey's Anatomy or anything, like maybe House, I don't remember. Or if you've even been in the hospital and you've just been hooked up to one of these guys. It just monitors your heart, and sometimes it beeps, and sometimes it beeps fast, and other times it'll be really slow, and then the machine will start beeping a lot, and it's just a really annoying machine. Lots of people can't wait to get unhooked to these guys, or unhooked from them. So this is just monitors the heart cycle or the cardiac cycle. So the patterns on an ECG or EKG are used to determine the heart's ability to conduct impulses. So obviously you can actually read one of these, and I'll show you guys how we read them. And if it looks kind of funky, the machine typically picks it up and will, depending on how bad it is, because sometimes our heart people have like flutters, or if you have a known heart condition, these can get pretty annoying. So there's ways that it kind of filters out information. So this is what's considered a normal EKG. So this is normal. And then on this slide, so to read an EKG, so each one of these means a heartbeat has occurred. So this is your thud thud. So we have what's called P, Q, R, S, and T. We have a P wave, so this is going to be your P wave right here. This guy is going to reflect the function of the upper chambers of the heart. So this is your upper chambers contracting. It's followed by a flat line, which is going to show that electrical impulses move to the lower chambers. So this is your first thud, your electrical impulse that's going to show that it's sending to the lower chambers of the heart. You have the PR interval. So the P and then right to the beginning of the R, this is just going to reflect the ability of the wires to conduct electricity from the upper to the lower chambers. So again, that's just that whole action, summarizing that whole action. We then have Q. The QRS complex is what it's called, QRS complex. So it's going to reflect the condition of or conduction of electricity throughout the lower chambers of the heart. So since this is where most of the muscle is, it should also be the largest portion of the EKG. If the wires are not working properly, it will be too wide. So there are times where this gets really wide, and you can tell if the wires are actually not working properly in the heart. So, then we move on to the T wave. So this is the last wave. It represents when things kind of go back to normal, called repolarization. So this should be familiar to you guys. It's that relaxation of the heart, or the diastole. All right, so in terms of heart attacks, these are used to determine if a patient is having a heart attack. You can easily tell, going back to the last slide, this would look extremely funky if someone was having a heart attack, depending on what kind of heart attack they were having. So there are other tests that people will typically use. So it's hard with heart attacks because women don't typically show the same symptoms as men. Men have that typical left arm pain, chest pain, something just doesn't feel right kind of thing, where women can actually go a couple days without noticing. My grandma went to the hospital and they were like, "Did you know you had a heart attack?" And she had no idea. So this could be different signs. I think my grandma had once just shortness of breath, but it was coupled with anxiety. So she wasn't sure. Maybe she's like, "I'm having a panic attack." I don't know. She didn't have left arm pain. She actually had, I think she had lower back pain or upper back pain. It was one of them. And she kind of had some leg pain to go along with it. So it was kind of weird. So what the doctors did, because they couldn't tell her heart attack was over, so this looked normal, they ran a test to test the troponin levels in your blood. So troponin is this protein that's going to be released when your heart muscle is damaged. So if there's any sign of troponin when they do a blood test, that means that you've most likely had a heart attack. So it's a pretty easy way to tell. So kind of interesting. So she usually does get her troponin levels checked regularly because she is diagnosed with a heart problem. So they're actually monitoring her right now to see she's due to have one. So heart attacks are much less scary than they used to be because they're so common. Doctors are very familiar with how they happen. So it's really become less of a scary thing. Um, so yeah, she is actually due to have one here in the next couple of years. Um, and then, so the last thing I guess I want to say, so this kind of wraps up what we've talked about. Next, we're going to get into blood flow, and then we'll kind of talk about blood pressure. What does that mean? We'll do a lab. So I'm really excited. But check out this video of the anatomy of a heart attack if you'd like. It's really interesting. Like I said, he uses real human heart for it, and he gets really descriptive. So don't worry too much about the verbiage he uses, and try to kind of recognize what we did talk about already. Again, remember to check the rest of classroom. Don't forget to turn in this ed puzzle due Sunday the 23rd at midnight. I will post that as a separate assignment. Again, it's going to be under classwork, and you guys will find it under Unit 4. And then don't forget to complete that heart worksheet. You want to label the numbers and draw those arrows. Again, you can color them red and blue, or you can just draw arrows, and we'll do it later. And you can also color the sections of the heart if you'd like. The only other thing I want to say is I hope you guys have a really good break. Enjoy your week off. I hope you guys have some fun and you're not just working the whole week. And then don't forget Dr. Record is coming in on Monday. We will be doing a relay race, so I'm kind of excited. There's going to be prizes involved. Whoever the team wins, they get some prizes. So I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great vacation. Please email me if you have any questions, or feel free to see me. I guess we'll have school on Friday, so I'm recording this on our snow day. So we'll have school tomorrow. So if you guys see this and you have so many questions, please feel free to come see me. All right, guys, see you Monday.